there is a question most people never think to ask themselves. Not because it is too difficult, but because the answer is uncomfortable. How much money has actually passed through your hands over the course of your life? Add it all up. Every paycheck, every side income, every gift, every bonus across every year you have been earning. The number is probably larger than you expect. Now ask yourself the harder question. Where did it go? Because the truth is, for most people, the answer is not a confident one. The money came in and the money left. And what remained was far less than what the total should suggest. This is not a story about income. This is a story about the invisible system that determines whether money stays with you or quietly moves on to someone else. What if the real gap between where you are financially and where you want to be has nothing to do with how much you earn, and everything to do with whether you understand how wealth actually compounds? Not just in a portfolio, not just in a retirement account, but in your psychology, your habits, your decisions, and your daily relationship with money. That is what this video is about. 20 rules that activate the compounding effect across every dimension of your financial life. Not shortcuts, not hacks. These are the structural laws that serious wealth builders internalize, often quietly and almost never talk about. If you are someone who is serious about building real, lasting wealth, consider subscribing. This channel is built for people who are ready to think at a deeper level about money. Not trends, not noise, just the principles that actually work over time. This is the first quiet compounding rule. Discretion is a form of financial protection. In a culture that rewards visibility, financial humility is one of the most underrated strategies in wealth building. When people around you know the details of your financial position, they unconsciously begin to make claims on it. Requests, expectations, assumptions. The social dynamics shift in ways that are subtle but costly. What you have quietly disappears into the social obligations that your visibility created. True wealth is not a performance. It is a position. The people who accumulate the most rarely advertise the fact. The second rule reveals something deeper. Time invested before money invested is one of the highest leverage moves available to anyone who is serious about building wealth. Before you allocate a single dollar to an investment you do not fully understand, the most valuable thing you can do is study it. Not superficially, but seriously. The cost of ignorance in investing is not visible on day one. It compounds silently in the wrong direction. A person who spends 6 months learning the fundamentals of personal finance before making major financial decisions will consistently outperform someone who acts quickly without understanding. Time spent learning is capital being deployed, just in a form that most people do not recognize. Here is where the third compounding force begins. Money operates like any sophisticated system. It has rules, and the people who understand those rules navigate it completely differently from those who do not. Think of any complex game you have ever learned. In the beginning, the outcomes felt random. Then patterns emerged. Then strategy became possible. Money is identical in this regard. The fundamentals are learnable. And once learned, they change the way every financial decision feels. The rules are not hidden. They are simply not taught in the places where most people spend their time. That gap in education is one of the most expensive things a person can carry through life without realizing it. This next lesson is invisible but powerful. No amount of money will resolve a psychological insecurity that lives inside you. This is one of the most important things you will hear about wealth, and it is almost never said directly enough. The car, the house, the wardrobe, the status signals of success. These things do not quiet internal inadequacy. They amplify it. Because when the purchase is made and the initial feeling fades, the void is still there. And now you have less money. The people who build lasting wealth are not chasing self-worth through acquisition. They have done the internal work that separates their identity from their balance sheet. That emotional clarity is not a soft skill. It is one of the most financially consequential mindsets a person can develop. By the way, if you are enjoying the video so far and want more content like this, drop the word rules in the comments so I know to keep creating at this level. The fifth compound rule carries a long perspective. Wealth is not a destination you reach and then leave behind. It is an ongoing practice. Even among the wealthiest people in the world, the engagement with money does not stop. It evolves. The game does not end at a certain number. It changes form. Understanding this shifts your entire relationship with the wealth-building process. When you stop looking for a finish line and start treating your finances as an ongoing craft, something opens up. Anxiety around money decreases. Patience increases. Consistency, which is the true engine of compounding, becomes much easier to sustain when you are not in a constant state of urgency. Have you ever thought about why continuous learning feels optional to most people, but is actually the highest returning investment available? The sixth rule is that knowledge acquisition is a direct financial strategy, not abstract self-improvement, not general curiosity. Specific targeted learning about the systems that govern how money moves, how markets behave, how businesses grow, and how financial decisions interact over time. The return on that kind of learning is not immediate, but it is enormous. And unlike most other investments, it cannot be taken from you. Every year you invest in understanding something the majority of people around you do not understand, you widen the gap between where you are and where average takes most people. The seventh rule speaks to your environment. The people around you are shaping your financial reality more than most would like to admit. Not because of peer pressure in the obvious sense, but because of what becomes normalized in your immediate circle. The financial behaviors, the assumptions, the conversations, the standards. When you spend significant time around people who think seriously about money, who are building things, who are invested in long-term outcomes, your baseline shifts. Your standards shift. Your conversations shift. This is not about using people for their resources. It is about understanding that financial growth is deeply contextual, and your context matters more than most advice you will ever read. The next compounding rule asks you to see something that most people instinctively look away from. Economic downturns and financial crises are not only moments of destruction, they are also moments of extraordinary opportunity for the person who is prepared. When asset prices fall dramatically, they do not disappear. They become available at prices that were not accessible before. The people who built significant wealth during and immediately after major market contractions were not lucky. They were patient, they were prepared, and they understood that fear in the market is a pricing mechanism, not a signal to retreat. Volatility separates the disciplined investor from the reactive one. And discipline, practiced over time, compounds in ways that stability alone never could. And to make this journey effortless, we are building the Trip to Wealth Command Center, a Google Sheet system that brings your income, spending, investing, and net worth together in one place. It is your personal strategy hub, designed to expose money leaks, highlight growth opportunities, and show how small decisions compound into real wealth. Join the early access list below and secure a discount as an early supporter. Every wealth system needs a strategy, and this is where yours begins. The next rule is one that quietly catches people off guard. As you grow, your expenses naturally grow with you. Not just because of inflation, but because your lifestyle expectations evolve. Your tastes become more refined. Your social environment shifts. What felt like enough at 28 no longer feels sufficient at 42. This is not a character flaw. It is human nature. But it becomes financially dangerous when income growth is not deliberately outpacing lifestyle expansion. The people who build lasting wealth are acutely aware of this dynamic. They grow their income aggressively, and they grow their lifestyle conservatively. The gap between those two trajectories is where wealth accumulates. It is that simple, and it is that difficult. The 10th compounding rule is about consumption and its hidden cost. Consider what seems like a minor decision, choosing a more expensive version of something when a functional alternative exists. On its own, each choice appears trivial, but compounded across hundreds of decisions over years, the financial difference is extraordinary. Not because luxury is wrong, but because unconscious spending on status is one of the quietest destroyers of long-term wealth. Every dollar that goes towards signaling rather than building is a dollar that does not compound. Every dollar that compounds is a dollar that eventually does not require your labor to sustain it. The discipline of choosing function over performance, at least until the wealth is genuinely there to support it, is one of the most elegant financial strategies available. Have you ever considered how much your political environment shapes your personal financial outcomes? The 11th rule is that financially sophisticated people pay attention to economic policy, not just personal finance. Tax structures, fiscal policy, regulatory shifts, inflation targets, these are not abstract political debates. They have direct consequences on your purchasing power, your investment returns, and your ability to build wealth within a given system. Understanding the financial philosophy of the environment you operate in is not partisan. It is practical. The rules of the game change based on who is writing them. Knowing the rules puts you in a position to plan accordingly. The 12th rule is perhaps the most foundational of all. Wealth accumulates over time, not in moments. This sounds obvious, but the behavioral implications are profound. The most dangerous enemy of compounding is interruption. Withdrawing early, reacting to short-term volatility, shifting strategies when results feel slow. The investor who begins at 30 with consistent, modest contributions and does not interrupt the process will almost always outperform the investor who starts later with larger amounts but inconsistent behavior. Time in the market, patience with the process, and the discipline to let compounding do its work without interference. These are the unsexy truths that produce extraordinary long-term outcomes. Warren Buffett built the majority of his wealth after his 60th birthday. That is not a coincidence. That is compounding. The next compounding rule challenges a passive assumption many people hold. Idle money is not safe money. When capital sits in a low-yield environment while inflation moves steadily upward, it is quietly losing value every single day. The feeling of safety that a large savings balance provides is partly an illusion if that capital is not deployed in some way that at minimum matches inflation. This does not mean reckless risk-taking. It means understanding that preserving purchasing power requires active decision-making. Your money is either working for you or quietly working against you. There is no genuinely neutral position over the long term. What if the financial advice you need most has nothing to do with finance at all? The 14th rule is that self-discipline is the master variable in personal finance. The mathematical formulas behind compound interest are elegant and clear. But they only produce their intended result when the human executing the strategy does not interfere with emotional decisions. The fear that causes someone to sell at the bottom of a market. The excitement that causes someone to chase a trend at the top. The impatience that causes someone to redirect long-term capital toward short-term gratification. These behavioral interruptions are far more costly than most people realize. Developing genuine emotional regulation around financial decisions is not a personality trait you either have or do not. It is a skill that can be built, practiced, and refined over time. The 15th rule is one of the most mathematically important and behaviorally underestimated. Spending less than you earn is not a temporary sacrifice. It is a permanent structural advantage. The margin between what you earn and what you spend is the raw material of all wealth building. That margin, invested consistently and patiently, is what eventually creates financial independence. The size of the margin matters, but the consistency of it matters more. A smaller margin maintained for 20 years will outperform a larger margin maintained erratically. The habit of living within your means is not a compromise. It is the foundation upon which every other wealth-building strategy depends. Have you ever noticed how the people who seem to make money consistently tend to have developed skills that most others have not bothered to learn? The 16th rule is that scarcity of skill creates abundance of opportunity. In any market, the things that are genuinely rare command a premium. Your ability to earn, to negotiate, to create value in ways that others cannot easily replicate is directly tied to the specificity and depth of what you know how to do. Generalists compete on effort. Specialists compete on value. And value, not effort, is what markets reward most consistently. Investing in the development of a genuinely differentiated skill set is one of the most powerful income compounding strategies available to anyone at any stage of their career. The next rule brings you back to something foundational. Comparison is one of the most effective ways to destroy a sound financial strategy. When your financial decisions are shaped by what someone else is doing, you are no longer operating from your own plan. You are operating from a reaction to theirs. And their plan was built for their circumstances, their goals, their timeline, and their psychology. Not yours. The discipline of staying focused on your own financial trajectory, measuring your progress against your own past rather than someone else's present, is one of the most psychologically demanding and financially rewarding habits you can develop. Your strategy should be singular, your execution should be patient, and your metrics should be personal. The 18th rule dismantles one of the most persistent myths about money. Money is not moral. It is not good or evil in itself. It is neutral. It reflects and amplifies the character of the person who holds it. A person with a generous spirit and strong values who builds wealth will deploy that wealth in ways consistent with those values. A person whose character has not been developed will find that money reveals and magnifies whatever was already there. This matters because it reframes the goal of wealth building. You are not just accumulating capital. You are developing the character, the habits, the judgment, and the values that will determine what that capital eventually produces in your life and in the lives of those around you. The next rule completes the picture of how money actually moves through a society. Capital flows toward people who demonstrate the capacity to handle it well. This is not mystical. It is behavioral. Investors look for competence. Markets reward consistency. Opportunities present themselves to people who have prepared for them. The reputation you build as someone who understands money, who honors commitments, who manages resources wisely, and who creates genuine value is itself a form of compounding. It attracts partnerships, opportunities, and capital that would not otherwise find its way to you. The way you handle what you currently have is the signal that determines what the future will make available. And this brings us to the 20th rule, the one that holds everything else together. Begin where you are, not with a dramatic overhaul, not with a complete reinvention, but with small, deliberate, consistent actions that align with a long-term direction. The instinct when confronting financial goals is to wait until the conditions are right, until income is higher, until debt is cleared, until life is more stable. But compounding does not reward the person who waits for perfect conditions. It rewards the person who starts with imperfect ones and remains consistent. A small action taken today, repeated across a decade, produces an outcome that a large action taken once cannot match. The smallest disciplined step, applied consistently, is more powerful than any intensity that is not sustained. Here is what these 20 rules are really pointing toward. Wealth is not built through moments of intensity. It is built through the quiet, consistent compounding of behavior. Every rule in this framework reinforces the same underlying truth: that the gap between financial struggle and financial freedom is rarely about the amount of money involved. It is almost always about the quality of the habits, decisions, and psychology surrounding that money over a long period of time. Financial freedom is not about speed. It is not about finding the right investment at the right moment or earning your way to a certain number quickly. It is about developing the kind of clarity, stability, and consistency that allows compounding to work without interruption across years and decades. The investor who understands themselves well enough to stay patient during a downturn is worth more than any market timing strategy ever developed. The person who earns the trust of money by handling it well at every level is the person who eventually finds themselves in a position of genuine independence. What you have watched today is not a list. It is a framework. A way of thinking about wealth that, once internalized, changes the quality of every financial decision you make. Not through discipline imposed from the outside, but through understanding that genuinely shifts your perspective from the inside. Each of these 20 rules activates something. Not in the market, in you. And you, operating with clarity, patience, and consistent behavior over time, are the most powerful compounding force available in your financial life. The question is not whether the system works. The question is whether you will apply it with the consistency it deserves. Start there, and let the rest compound. And there you have it, the 20 rules that activate wealth compounding. If you found value today, I highly recommend watching my next video. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to leave your comment below, especially if this video made you think differently. I appreciate your support more than you know. Until next time, stay consistent, stay patient, and stay winning. See you in the next one, Money Magician.